Hello, Tech Pros, episode 232.
Make sure you create your vision, get clear on it, and then stay the course.
Welcome to the podcast where every day of the week we publish another conversation exploring the anxieties, challenges, and opportunities that technical professionals and entrepreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. There are a lot of shows that focus on the nuts and bolts of technology, but this podcast is not one of them. This is about the people behind the tech industry and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com, and I invite you to read my personal story of overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Justin Deese. Happy Monday, Justin.
Happy Monday. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, dude. Are you motivated to get this interview started?
I am. I'm pretty fired up to be talking to you and being introduced to your audience.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. CEO Justin Deese is a highly sought-after business strategy, visionary, and self-made entrepreneur. He simultaneously built 3 flourishing in-home service companies in multiple states, is a certified E-Myth business coach, and is an expert at helping fellow business owners structure and manage their companies for maximum profitability. Dude, you got a lot going on. People say that I'm crazy, and I agree, for doing a 7-day-a-week podcast, but simultaneously building 3 businesses in multiple states at the same time. Are you a madman or what?
A little bit, and those that are entrepreneurs typically are not your normal people. So there's probably a little bit of crazy there, but a little bit of system.
Yeah, as long as we can maybe channel that craziness, foster it for the forces of good, then all things end up great, right?
Right.
Awesome. So today is Motivation Monday on Hello Tech Pros, and I'm super, super excited to talk to you about your motivational story and the things that you're so passionate about, and things you're working on. But you know what, dude? We're all human, and we all have periods in our life and our business where we're not so motivated and we're not so excited about being here on a Monday, and we don't want to get out of bed, let alone, do the things that we have to do as a responsible adult. So what I always ask my guests on Monday is share us that story, Justin, of the time in your life when you were completely unmotivated. And then after that, we'll talk about how you got out of the dumps and what you've done since then.
Yeah. So, gosh, there's, part of being an entrepreneur and especially running several businesses is there's not one instance. I could probably spend 4 or 5 dozen years telling you different ones. But, one of the big ones for me that was a big, downer in my life that ended up being a very good positive was back in the 2001, back when the whole .com kind of implosion happened. Mm-hmm. It was really kind of the only time I ever had an actual real job, I guess, as people call them. And I got laid off. And it was really weird. I got laid off, and I remember coming home, and at the time I wasn't married, but I guess she was my girlfriend at the time. I remember coming home and spending at least a good 2 or 3 days in a pity party.
Right.
So that was a big difficult time when I was not all that motivated.
So tell us about your situation at that time. So since then, it sounds like you haven't had any, like, what they call actual real jobs, right? You've been an entrepreneur, you've been doing your own thing. So when you were working at this other company, when you were an employee, did you feel like, hey, this is something like I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, I want to retire here, I want to grow my career, I want to do big things. Or was it just like, it's just kind of a job?
It was a job. It was certainly not. I guess it could have been a career. I mean, I was working for a pretty dynamic company at a very young age, and that was nice, and that was a neat, kind of button on my lapel. But it's one of those things where I was never comfortable in that role. So when I got laid off, that was kind of my thing. As I told my wife, I'm like, I have to be in charge of my future from now, and I can't allow other people or other companies or anything else to kind of dictate that future.
Dude, I totally, completely empathize with that. In that time, 2001, that's when I was working for a .com. We were building amazing products. We were bazillionaires on paper until 2001, and then we were dirt poor. And I was like, I was proactive at that point. I was like, you know what? No blood, no foul. Peace out. Like, this is not working for me. And so I left that. But and that was just because I didn't want to get fired, because I could see the writing on the wall. But fast forward, 14 years later, and I had worked for an oil and gas company for years and years and years, like well over a decade, and boom, like got laid off last year at the beginning of 2015, and then moved out to Florida. Been here for just a couple of weeks and found an awesome job at a video game company. Worked there for 5 weeks, and they shut down the whole department, shut down the whole the whole Orlando office. Like, oh my gosh. Job number 3 came up right after that, in just literally a couple of days, and I worked there for 8 months, and they had problems too, and they did layoffs. So at that point, it took me 3 times before I came to the decision that you came to. It was just like, dude, I can't do this I have to do it on my own from now on. Like, I can't survive through this. So you were never comfortable in that role. It was just kind of a job, even though it was kind of a cool job. It was just a job for you, and not totally exciting. But why do you think you fell into this state of a pity party? Like, what was it about it that got you completely unmotivated when you went home?
Well, I'd never experienced that, and and that's being laid off. You kind of go through those stages, and rejection is one of them, right? I feel like I'm great at what I do, and then when I get everybody gets a pink slip, you go, oh, well, I must not be good at what I do. And the truth is nothing better could have happened to me. But, at the time of the storm, you kind of look at it and, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. And then it didn't take very long for that to become probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I may have stayed there. I may have been comfortable. I may have gotten that, comfortability that a lot of people get.
Yeah, and there's no blood, no foul. There's no harm in that. Everybody chooses their own lifestyle. They choose their own career. And if I was really, really comfortable at that oil company for a long time. I got paid really well. I got to work on interesting projects. Technology not cutting edge, but I could live with that. And awesome, amazing people that I work with. But it was definitely in my comfort zone. So once you got out of your comfort zone, and you had, after a couple of days of sitting around the house and feeling bad, then you had a conversation with your wife, and you're like, look, I got to do something else besides this. I can't be dependent on anybody else. Like, what was the next steps after that to kind of rebuild your motivation and get excited about the path that was in front of you?
Well, I was early 20s, so I was 20, I think. So I really was starting to, I didn't know. I didn't know what it took to run a business. I didn't know any of those answers, but quite frankly, either I was really motivated or I was a few bricks short of a load, but I was determined I was going to do it regardless of what it took and regardless of the amount of hours that it required me to do it. So I kind of bootstrapped it, and I had a couple of different little businesses that were hit and misses, and now I actually still own one that I started 13 years ago now. So I went a couple of years of kind of jumping back and forth and just kind of almost like side hustles, just making money where I could while I found what it was that I was passionate about.
So tell us a little bit about that journey of discovering what it is you're passionate about. And okay, so you were doing some side hustles. You're just kind of playing entrepreneur, just trying to figure out what was going to stick. I think there's a lot of us who have been there. Really, when I first started this podcast, that's kind of where I was, is just kind of like, I need to do something. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm going to start with a podcast. I'm going to get my voice out there. I'm going to start being the quote unquote expert on the air, right? And build up an audience and really kind of over time pull my audience and figure out what I can do to serve them. So that was my journey. So as you were going through and building these side hustles and kind of experimenting with different business models and areas to work in, what was the point where you're really like, aha, I got it. Like, I understand Justin now. I know what I am all about and what I need to do.
So for a long time, even when I had, my business that I ended up growing into a pretty good sized company, I still wasn't really doing what I was passionate about, but it was paying the bills, and the the byproduct of the business I liked, right? I liked the financial security. I liked what it was doing for me. It probably wasn't until about 5 years ago that I started to get clear on who I was and what I was actually passionate about. So it took a number of years of even having that business to kind of get dialed in on what it is that I'm passionate about.
So was there kind of like a eureka moment, an aha moment where like the clouds part, the lightning strikes, the sun comes out, and you're like, I know what I'm supposed to do when I grow up? Or was it just something that kind of evolved and iterated over time where it kind of you slowly started talking yourself into this new idea?
Well, it evolved over my whole life. And yes, there was kind of a period of time where it kind of all came crashing together, and I went, this is it. But so when I had my business and I grew it quickly, and it was way beyond what my capabilities were to run. And so when I reached out for a mentor, and that's when I started learning about business coaches, and I got a good business coach. Then it took a couple of years of having that coach and starting to understand the importance of that relationship and of that accountability section of it. I kind of started to tie that into when I was a kid playing sports, all the way, playing sports from a kid up through high school. And I started thinking about how this coaching relationship, how impactful it is on not just your life, but other people's life as well.
Yeah, so sometimes when we're trying to learn a new skill, when we're a newbie at whatever it is we're doing, right, we just need some mentor there who has been there and who has seen it, either in their own experience or they've seen lots and lots of kids or lots and lots of entrepreneurs, make these mistakes and struggle in these areas, and just somebody there who can kind of coach us up and hold us accountable and push us a little bit. So what was it like when you first got your business coach? Like, what did that change in your business and change in your like motivation state of mind of like, I don't know if I can grow this. I don't know if I can do this. And then what happened when you got that coach?
Well, when I first got a coach, the first 2 months were a little bit not great, because I was frustrated, because as an entrepreneur, I just wanted somebody to give me the answer, right? So I was searching everywhere for someone to just give me that pill or tell me that answer that I was, that magical thing I was looking for.
Right.
And when I finally got serious and my coach really taught me about vision and writing a vision and what is important and where are you going, then the clarity came. Because then I went, oh, well, okay, it's just like a GPS in my car. If I know where my end result is and where I'm trying to go, if I draw a map, well, how much easier is that to get there? It's exponentially easier, right? So so that was probably my clarity moment, is once I got my vision squared away on not just my business. I mean, yes, I did it for my business, but more that I did it for me. That was when the clouds parted, so to speak.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that story, and I love that how it's like a GPS in your car, right? That vision is really the map to show you where you want to go. And I think when we're either trying to build our career or we're trying to build our business, you know what? Exactly what you said. I felt this 100 times throughout my career and throughout starting different businesses. Is I just want somebody to tell me like what to do. Like literally, what do I do? Do I go talk to this person and do this? Do I build some technical expertise and try to launch an app? Like what is it that I'm supposed to do? And so I ended up playing around with a lot of different things, experimenting with a lot of different things. But I've recently, just this year, kind of had that aha moment where I really am figuring out the vision of Chad and what I'm all about and where I'm going with helping software developers and helping technical folks with social anxiety because of my progress with that. So when you started sitting down and writing your vision statement, what was the process like? Because I know a lot of people kind of heard it and it feels a little touchy-feely. It feels a little, kind of woo-woo and whooshy. And all of my audience are like super, super technical, right? They're engineers. They're very math-oriented. They're very data-oriented. And so that writing that vision statement, sequence kind of sounds a little bit scary in to some people, right? So what was the process like for you to actually go through that process and write your vision statement?
So I'll say this, as being a coach now, I get to work with people on their visions, which is neat because everybody has a different way and everybody connects to it different. For me, I had a difficult time with it because I couldn't see in front of the hood of the car, so to speak. And really what I had to do to really get serious about who I was and who I wanted to be, I ended up having to write a eulogy. Not to get too deep on everybody, but man, if you want to get clear on your end result, sit down and write your own eulogy. That's pretty powerful, and it is very touchy-feely and all that good stuff. But man, when it was done, so impactful.
So was this from the standpoint of if I keep doing what I'm doing, this is what my eulogy is going to look like, or like this is what I want it to be like when everything's said and done, this is what I want to be known for, this is what I want people to say about me?
Yeah, I wrote it based on what I wanted at the end. When I got to my roadmap, what did I want it to say? What did I want it to look like? I didn't want to write it then because it wouldn't look good. So I wanted it towards the end. What do I want the end result to look like?
Right. So once you got that on paper and you really reflected on it, we're like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is who I am. Then what happened in that business? Did you make a big pivot? Were there a lot of changes that you had to implement, or did you figure out that you were, pretty not too far off the path?
I wasn't far off the path, but the crazy thing is about doing your eulogy and even your big goals is that it makes the other decisions so much easier, right? So the things that used to hang me up and tie me up and the questions in my business that I had a difficult time with, they all of a sudden became easier, right? Because I'd go, hey, does this get me to this goal at the end of the day? And then your answer either becomes, a yes or a no, depending on how you look at it. So it made all the small stuff start to feel small.
That's awesome. And as an entrepreneur, some of that small stuff, especially when you're first getting started or you're trying to, I've got a few clients, but I'm trying to build that revenue. I'm trying to get up to the levels I want to get. There's a lot of that small stuff that just feels like an anchor, right? It feels like it's weighing you down, and it can absolutely demotivate you some days because it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, there's so many things. There's 1,000 different things, and I'm juggling. I got my social media posts. I got to be on top of that. And I got my clients that I need to be taken care of. But then I've got all these other things, and people are constantly changing the technology on me. And I need to look at what's the new thing this week. Snapchat? Okay, I got to figure out Snapchat. How am I going to do that? And there's just always something, right? Always something. But I love the fact that you said that it's just like, boom, that's your roadmap. And you ask yourself, is this new thing, is it going to get me closer to the goal? Is it going to expedite my travels to this goal, or is it just going to be another thing to get in the way? And so it just kind of makes everything a lot easier. That sounds so relaxing, right? It sounds so much better to have that.
It definitely is, right? And when you have that end result, it is very simple to know when you're off course, right? So it's really your barometer of everything.
Love it. Love it. Tell you what, Justin, in just a minute, we'll talk about maybe some of the things that you do to help your clients find the vision and what things that they're struggling with. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. Is your website ugly? I mean, really ugly? Did your website fall out of the ugly source code repo and hit every branch on the way down? Is your website so ugly that Apple won't display it in Safari due to their human interface guidelines? Is your website so ugly that your CSS has no style? Is your website so ugly that even your mama won't bookmark it? I know a lot about ugly websites because, sadly, I've been building them my entire career. I've always made excuses like, it should be the functionality over the design. But what I should have been saying all along is, look, I'm colorblind, I'm style challenged, and I have no business building web front ends whatsoever. Luckily, I've worked with some amazing designers that have helped turn my MVPOS, or minimum viable piece of into websites that real humans want to use. And it's not just about complementary colors and rad logo designs. It's about connecting with your website visitors on an emotional level that engages the stickiness centers in their brain and makes them more curious to read about your products and then follow your call to actions. I invite you to check out the awesome tips that website designer Veronica Kieran gave me for the Hello Tech Pros website and get your free personalized website makeover consultation video by visiting HelloUglySite.com. Hello Ugly Site is definitely ugly, but your website doesn't have to be. Go to HelloUglySite.com. That's HelloUglySite.com. Since publishing episode 141 on how social anxiety disorder and depression nearly cost me my life, I've gotten tons of feedback from people who are struggling with similar issues. Anxiety is a big deal. In my opinion, it's not discussed enough, especially in the tech industry, where a lot of us hide from our anxieties behind the computer screen instead of learning how to address them. That's why I started writing a book on the subject. If you are struggling with anxiety or know someone who is, please visit anxietynerd.com. You can sign up to read Chapter 1 for free, as well as receive regular progress details so that you can hold me accountable to get this book published. anxietynerd.com. Okay, we're back. We're talking to CEO Justin Deese, who is a highly sought-after business strategist, a visionary, self-made entrepreneur who has built a lot of different businesses. And we've been talking to Justin about the evolution of him as an employee, as an entrepreneur after he left the world of being an employee. All the businesses that he started, all the side hustles, all the great work he did with trying to build and grow his business was really, great work financially, but didn't necessarily motivate him to where he wanted to be, like really at the end times, right? So at the end of Justin's life, this is not what he wanted to be known for. So got together with a business coach, spent a lot of time really looking at his vision, where he wanted to be, where he wanted to go, wrote that really tough eulogy of, this is what we want. This is what Justin wants his life to look like at the end, and really put that plan in place that made it so much easier to make decisions. So Justin, now that you're in this world and you're helping out all of your clients and all of your students in this area, you're coaching them. What are some of the big hangups that you see over and over and over again from your clients that maybe you could share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get hung up. And I say we as the same as my client, because the neat thing, and I think the reason I resonate with a lot of my clients is I've been there, and so it helps me. But I think that we get hung up on goals, right? Well, people go, okay, well, I'm going to set a goal, and they set this huge goal. And a lot of times, really, for goal setting, if they will just break it down into small chunks, right? So set your goals in phases: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, 3 years. It will really help you get to each goal individually, right? And then once you hit your goals, make sure to celebrate them. As humans, we're so hard on ourselves, and we're so difficult, and we're so quick to throw ourselves under the bus. And a lot of times we forget to celebrate our wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I have fallen victim to this so many times, where I have this imposter syndrome. Like, hey, who am I to set this big goal? Who am I to make this big achievement? Who am I to try to achieve this? And then I have the confirmation bias, right? So I struggle with the fact that I don't believe that it is possible, or I don't believe that people are trying to help me, or whatever the situation is. And then anytime I see any kind of data, I kind of warp it in my mind and say, yep, see, that proves that I'm never going to hit this goal, or that proves that I'm no good at this, or that proves that something horrible about myself. And especially with the social anxieties that I've had in the past, I've absolutely thrown myself under the bus 1,000 times in my head about, what's going on and what progress have I made, and can I stay motivated? And to your point, I do not celebrate often enough, like, hey, I made some really good progress here. that whatever goal that I had, forget that goal. Like, this is what we've done in the last 30 days. This is what we've done in the last year. When I say we, I mean me, you know, and that's awesome. And you're right, Justin. We absolutely should be celebrating that way more often.
Right. Yeah. And again, it doesn't even have to be a 30-day goal. It can be, hey, you know, today's Monday. Start your day with your goals for not just today, but just start goals for this week. Hey, by the end of this week, I'm going to get this one thing done or these 3 things done. And just you know, you start small. Creating goals and achieving them, it's a habit.
Yeah, breaking it down into the small, achievable goals, like you said, just like knock it off one day at a time, one small goal at a time. We're going to see a lot of progress. So once you give that advice, once you coach up some of your students about that, like what do you see happen to them as they're trying to make progress on their business, progress on whatever area that you're coaching them in? Like what happens next after they start implementing this?
Well, they start to see that things are possible, and they start to look at things outside of the fireman box, right? A lot of times with entrepreneurs, right, like we said earlier, you kind of get hung up on those one little things, and the one thing really drags you down. And the more you start taking things in bite-sized chunks, the easier it is to start looking at your business as a whole. Because that's really the point of coaching. My objective with my clients is to really get them to kind of shift from business operators to business owners. And there's such a big difference between the two personalities that, you know, once they can kind of get in that owner space and take that elevated look at their business, it's just like the eulogy, right? It's the same thing. Once you get that elevated look at your business, solving the little nuanced problems becomes very simple.
So I have struggled with that so many times. And more importantly, I know many people in my audience has struggled with that in the past or is currently struggling with this, where, you know, there's a lot of very, very smart, incredibly smart, talented technical professionals. They're software developers, they're server administrators, right? And maybe they have launched their freelancing business. Maybe they have started their consulting business, but they're doing the same tasks as when they were an employee for somebody else, right? They're writing the code, they're building the servers, they're networking the systems together, and they're doing those functional day-to-day tasks at the same time trying to sell the next client, right? Trying to build their business. So we're almost out of time, but maybe a little bit of time we could spend on, you know, what do we do to make that shift from that business operator to that business owner? Like, what are the mindsets or the processes we have to put in place?
So you mentioned earlier, and I'm a certified eMyth business coach. So I went through eMyth, which is one of the world's most famous small business books. And exactly what you described is what they talk about. It's you have 3 personalities in you, right? You have the technician, you have the manager, and you have the entrepreneur. And, you know, the eMyth kind of talks about, you know, the thing is just because you can do the technical part of that business doesn't mean you have the ability to run the business. So it's really having a balance and being able to identify, okay, what hat am I wearing right now? We all make the joke of, you know, I wear 10 hats as a business owner. That's fine. You need to get it down to 3, and you need to know what hat you're wearing and when. And really be able to schedule your day and schedule your time around because there's times you have to work on the technical part of the business, and there's times you have to go out and get clients, and there's times you have to work on your business, and there's times you have to work in your business. You just have to really be able to identify the two.
And how much, like, I know it's probably the answer is it depends, right? It depends on the situation. It depends on the business. It depends on the individual. But is there a good ratio of like how much time we should be spending? Like, hey, I really need to try to outsource as much as the technical stuff as I can and only do like 5 or 10% of that and spend 80% of my job, 90% of my job over on the entrepreneurship side or the manager side?
Well, the end goal needs to be you want to spend 100% of your time as the entrepreneur of the business.
Right.
You need to be the visionary of your business. Now, everybody starts at a different point, but wherever you start from, you want to just kind of start carving out a little time here, carving out a little time there. But yeah, your end goal for a business should be, I'm the visionary of the business. I steer it. That doesn't mean you can't do the technical work. And that doesn't mean you can't do the managerial work, but that means you need to do what you would love to do in your business, not what you have to do.
Man, I love that. That's so simple, but yet it's so powerful, right? So it doesn't matter where we start on any of our journeys. We're all going to start somewhere. We may be like 99% technical and then just know just the very basic beginning of how to manage or how to be an entrepreneur. But like you said, the end goal is to be 100% on the entrepreneur side, to run the business, to make the big strategy decisions and the investments on where we're going to move this company, and eventually kind of like have other people to do those technical tasks and even those manager tasks. And slowly over time, we're going to have to build up our expertise on the entrepreneurship side.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. Great stuff. Justin, I could geek out on this amazing stuff forever and ever, because this is the world that I'm in right now, trying to grow my business. So love talking to you. But before we go and wrap this episode up, can you share any parting words of wisdom that you have for our audience? And then the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
I think just in conversation that we've just had here, I think probably the best thing I could say is to make sure you create your vision, get clear on it, and then stay the course. Right? Don't get distracted by shiny objects and other people's opinions and the noises in the background. Get clear on your vision. The best way to connect with me, my website is justindeese.com. Last name is spelled Deese. And you can also find me on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
Justin, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this conversation and your motivational story about, sometimes life happens, like we get laid off or something bad happens to us outside of our control, and it still sucks. Like, it still absolutely sucks, and it can get us down, it can get us unmotivated. But to your point and to your story, we have to pick ourselves up, and we have to, make those next steps moving forward. At the end of the day, it's all about whatever vision that we want to achieve. And thank you so much for just kind of laying out that story for us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me here, and inviting me to be a guest on your podcast for sure. So I'm ready to go crush the week now.
Awesome. Me too. Tech Pros, if you are, tell you what, no matter where you are, whether you're an employee, a freelancer, a consultant, you own your own business, what is your goal that you want to achieve in the short term, right? Let's not say the huge goals, the end of life stuff, but just like, what do you want to achieve in the next 30 days? I would love to hear that. So if you go to hellotechpros.com / I don't know what episode we're on. We're on a Motivation Monday. What is this? This is 232. If you go to hellotechpros.com / 232, at the bottom of the page, that's the show notes page for Justin's episode here. Leave a comment and let Justin and I know like what you want to achieve in the next 30 days. I would love to hear from you. Or if websites are not your thing, Twitter, right? Hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on email, wherever you can find me. I would love to hear what your short-term goals are and what we can do to make that next step forward. You've been listening to Justin Deese, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com / 232. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com / Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Motivation Monday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about productivity. On Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. Then next week, we start it all over again with Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.